live right at on May 17th. So we're bringing you that first reaction video. Dave, I mean, we're jumping right into this because there's a lot to talk about with this movie. The 11th movie in the X-Men, I don't know, installment universe, whatever it is. And obviously the sequel to Deadpool from 2016. I mean, I guess just to get your initial reaction, did you like the movie?
Yeah, I liked Deadpool too. I didn't love it, but I thought it was good. I guess, just a blanket statement. I think it's more Deadpool, and that might grow tiresome for some people, I think.
Yeah, and actually, we had talked about some concerns around this film in pre-production because Tim Miller was originally set to direct this, and David Leitch obviously ended up taking over when there were creative differences between Tim Miller and Ryan Reynolds. And it seemed like the main creative difference was Ryan Reynolds wanted to make this a film more based on Deadpool, a lot raunchier, really sticking with the humor that got it the R rating in the first one. So yeah, I'm not surprised to see it be very Deadpool centric, but it also does kind of take away from some of the bit players and some of the role play way. Like,
right? No, I agree. I think that was a kind of an interesting choice because they got bigger with this one, but they got partially got smaller, obviously, with what happens with his girlfriend Marina Baccarin's character, So like they add all these people in, Zazie Beetz and Terry Crews most notably, but yeah, it does feel like I don't know. So it's an interesting sequel, because it's not like any bigger in scope or anything. The first one was pretty grounded in terms of like it's a small story, and this one's kind of like that too. But I don't know. It's a interesting choice for sure.
Yeah, like so in the first Deadpool, there's really not a lot of other characters other than Deadpool. I forget what the main villain's name was. Yeah. His girlfriend,
Ajax.
Yeah, Ajax, which I think says a lot about probably him as a villain in general. And then the two X-Men, they even basically called out that there were only two X-Men helpers in this. Although I thought that was a great scene when he's like, "Oh, you couldn't even get them to just make a cameo," and they shut the door behind them. That was a very meta choice. But even those two, I mean, they didn't get as much shine in this. I thought, I think her name was like Yukio or Yokio or whatever it is.
Right.
Got a lot more play than even her girlfriend did. I'm blanking on her name as
Negasonic.
Well.
She was like
Negasonic.
She kind of had a decent chunk of screen time in the first one, and she did not have a lot of lines in the second one. That's for sure. Still very much like funny and playing the character when she was there, but yeah, she definitely was on the sidelines.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I actually, for the first 20 minutes of the film, felt like, oh man, this is gonna really drag on. It started off, I don't want to spoil it for anyone that hasn't seen it, but starts off with Deadpool like speaking to the camera about Logan and things like that. And then it kind of gives background to catch itself back up at a certain point. And then the credits roll about like, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes in. I really was like, this movie's going to take a long time. It picked up for sure, but I didn't think that the humor of it landed as well as the first one, at least at moments. I think there were more boom, boom, never really getting a break.
Right, exactly. And I think like just like the first one, it's so many one-liners, right? That's kind of the majority of the humor, but not as many of them land. I don't know so much if it's just they were worse jokes so much as that this wasn't fresh this time around. The fourth wall breaking slapstick nature, is it's not new anymore, so it maybe didn't have the same effect. I don't know, but yeah, no, I agree with that with the humor, and I think people's temperature with this movie really depends on how they handle that because it is nonstop. And well, I think there are a lot of funny stuff. I mean, obviously you referenced the X-Men references before, self-referential to the universe, but they made some digs at DC, which I thought like those are funny, but at the same time, like how many other jokes didn't land, all around, those like actual laugh out loud moments.
Like as nonstop boom one-liners aren't the shit. It's definitely still. I mean, I can't really imagine anyone else in the role at this point. Obviously, it kind of centers around figure out being too spoiled life in fact, and because you're always constantly like sarcastic and joking, and you're looking to really tie it to his emotional, like underlying emotional I don't know, resonance with the film. And I wasn't sure if that was a great choice either. How did you feel about that in terms of like a plot device?
Yeah, I don't know how anything serious can really hold up in the Deadpool running series, just because I mean, you saw it at the end. I think at this point, spoilers, if you're watching our really early Deadpool review, you probably should have seen it by now. But when Deadpool assumingly or originally dies, like it's dragged out, and he keeps like making jokes about how it's taking him so long to die. Like, so I just don't know. Like, I guess we'll get into him a little later, but like Josh Brolin's Cable, he kind of played like a more stoic character, and he had actual like emotional motivations, right?
Yep.
And I think that worked more or less, but I just don't know if you can have Deadpool, do that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Obviously, Brolin, a really interesting role in this, especially because obviously we're at the spoiler point of this. His character isn't always on like the bad side in a way, like it becomes kind of muddled. You kind of what his motivations are, and it makes a lot of sense in this world why he's doing this. Now, maybe he didn't need to take it to the lengths he did, and that's kind of what I'm talking about, but what did you think of Brolin's performance in general? It was kind of Thanos-esque in a way.
Yeah, no, I thought honestly, I thought he was pretty good in the action scenes, and he kind of played off of Reynolds' humor pretty well, I think. Obviously, he wasn't, trying to be comedic, but no, I liked him in the role. He definitely looks like a Cable, even if as they made the joke, he's like a smaller stature Cable than the comic character is, which is funny because in this movie they had obviously Colossus returns, and then the Juggernaut makes an appearance, and the Colossus and Juggernaut in the Deadpool series are just like bigger versions of when they first appeared in the earlier X-Men movie. So I thought that was interesting, considering Cable looked way more grounded,
Yeah, definitely. Brolin was, I thought, really good. I mean, he's a world-class actor. It's also, I think we talked about this with the Avengers review. It's interesting to see him play two people in the Marvel universe so close together and with kind of similar like affects throughout the movies, very like stoic, kind of like in control a lot of the time type people. So in a way, I kind of wish Brolin had a little bit more chance to move outside that box, but I still think he did a great job with the role. Who else stood out to you in this movie in terms of comedy or even like as like in a serious role?
I thought Zazie Beetz did pretty good for what she was given as Domino. I thought she held her own with Reynolds, and she wasn't as like predictable as I thought she was, because obviously it's like a very sexualized costume, but I was pretty happy with her role, what they had her do, considering Terry Crews was basically just stunt casted. I mean, there's all this talk about there'll be an X-Force movie before there's a Deadpool 3, and everyone's like, oh, Terry Crews will be in there too. He's so happy to finally be in a superhero movie. Just fucking kidding. He died like Adam Beach's character in Suicide Squad immediately.
Yep. Yeah, and honestly, I thought that was maybe the funniest part of the movie for me, was like that whole sequence of them like parachuting in, and each one, especially Peter, going through like different deaths. The whole like Peter thing, and also Brad Pitt being the Vanisher was just like class act, like just funny in general. Out of all those, which one was your favorite death?
Vanisher for sure.
Yeah,
it's like it was all running bit about if he was even there, and then it's just like a floating parachute, and I'm like, oh, it's probably just whatever. Nope, he was there.
Yeah.
That was really funny. And then I liked in the post-credit scene how he gets like, I don't know, the time turner from Hermione. In this case, it was from Cable, but like, and he goes back and resets everything. So give them some options. But yeah, no, I love that parachute scene. That was awesome.
Yeah, Peter, go home. Just go home.
Turn around.
This is pretty scary. What did you think of TJ Miller in this?
So he's not in that much.
No,
maybe 3 scenes maybe, and he's kind of he's doing his kind of shtick. Um, it's funny. I think he had some like really like drawn out like insults that were pretty pretty funny, but he's
Mhm.
not in as much as Karen Sani,
Mhm.
Dupinder's the actor who plays Dupinder. He has more to do in this movie. He's still kind of an Indian stereotype, um, but I thought he was pretty funny as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the whole like running bit about him wanting to be a killer, and then kind of the way it comes to fruition at the end, I thought was a nice way to like close that loop. Because that was kind of like the Chekhov's gun from the beginning, in a way, like him saying he wanted to do that. Um, what about this movie didn't you like? Because you said you didn't love it.
Uh, yeah, so I think part of it is just because it didn't feel as fresh to me, and I
Hmm.
didn't find it as funny as I thought I would. Like I still laughed, a bunch of times, but I was, laugh out laughing throughout Deadpool 1. So
Hmm.
I'm not sure if it was just a freshness thing or the jokes weren't quite as good this time around. Who knows? But I think Russell, he's kind of like the driver of the plot.
Right.
Fire Fist, right? And like
Hmm.
he's just kind of a grating kid, and it's like there were scenes where I was like, I was on board with him. There's times where he was just annoying, and I think
Hmm.
ultimately it was fine, but kind of like Ajax in Deadpool 1,
Hmm.
kind of a underwhelming uh, character. Well, I did think the bit about like they don't have plus size superheroes was smart.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. I think it was just he was supposed to be kind of a grading kid. That's kind of the character,
Yeah.
and he did drive the plot when everyone else, so it was fine. But yeah, I didn't like love everything about him.
Yeah, the thing about him, I thought, at least the comparison I made in my head driving home, was he was kind of like the kid version of Rebel Wilson in a way. You know,
Wow, yeah.
yeah, like a lot of the same kind of just like personality traits and just like acting kind of quirks about him, which Rebel Wilson can be very funny, but there's also roles where I feel like, all right, need to like tone it back a bit. Definitely could be grating. But yeah, I thought I haven't seen him in anything else. I don't know what his
Yeah,
background is,
he's
but
pretty new. He's a New Zealand actor. I think he's like 15, so I didn't recognize his other credits.
yeah. So definitely, I think he'll have room to grow and have better parts for sure. So one thing I thought was interesting is I was doing a little bit of research for this. So Brolin was great. Kyle Chandler was originally supposed to play Cable, and I was thinking about what would Kyle Chandler be like in this role?
Yeah, it's funny because like Cable in Deadpool 2, he does still look a lot like Josh Brolin,
Yeah,
you know.
he does.
And you look up a picture of Cable from the comics, and it's kind of similar, the gray hair, big jack dude. But
Hmm.
I don't know. At times, I was like, oh wow, that just does look a lot like Brolin. And Chandler maybe isn't as like a noticeable name for the average viewer, especially in the movie space. So that's an interesting what if, because obviously he's a great actor too, but that would have been a interesting switch.
I just imagine it as Coach Taylor. So like I'm imagining Coach Taylor as Cable right now, and it's just freaking hilarious, like dad bod Cable.
I
Like,
mean, you're just getting all of Friday Night Lights into Marvel. You had a Michael B already flame out as Human Torch, and then come back for Killmonger, and Taylor Kitsch flamed out as Gambit in
mm-hmm.
X-Men Origins.
Yep.
So, yeah, get Kyle Chandler in there. Why not?
Um, I mean, what else do you want to talk about with this? There were a lot of a little like subtle things about this that really stood out to me. Like the music, I thought was really great. And one thing that actually I found really funny was when Juggernaut and Colossus had their showdown. I don't know if you caught it, but it was like an opera. For like there's like oh shit, like
Right.
very funny.
Around that time, they started playing one of the soundtrack songs, which is a French Montana song featuring
Mhm.
Little Pump. And there's actual Little Pump lyrics in this movie. And I was like, wow, they actually went with that. And like, there's a lot of like French Montana Hans like after that. And I was like, interesting choice. It was fine, but not everyone loves, fucking Montana. So I thought
Right.
that was funny. What did you think of the action in this movie? Obviously,
Mm.
Tim Miller was replaced by David Leitch, and he did the stunt work and like co-directed John Wick 1, and then of course fully directed Atomic Blonde, a movie we reviewed last year. Check it out, SoundCloud Climbs Nostalgia Pod. And that had like that famous like faux one shot fight scene in that stairwell like halfway through the movie, which is great. Check it out on YouTube if you haven't seen the scene. But I don't know if the combat, the violence felt as visceral this time around. Perhaps that's the product of being a movie with a fair amount of CGI. I'm not sure. But I mean, did you think he like brought his like action sensibilities to the film?
I thought there were some good action scenes. One that stood out to me was definitely in the jail. Like the first showdown between Deadpool and Cable. I thought was really well done.
Yeah.
That really actually got me like on the edge of my seat. I was like, all right, here we go. I thought it was really gory, and like Deadpool can do that because his body like regenerates. Which, side note, the scene with the baby legs was also freaking hilarious.
Yeah.
Really really enjoyed that scene. But I think like the goriness and just like seeing like arms be turned around one way, or like his head twisted backwards, or even in the final battle scene with like the thing through his head that Colossus pulls out, it kind of takes it away from me. And in that regard, I do think the action wasn't as up to par as probably other Marvel films like the Avengers or something like that.
Right. Yeah, I'm just thinking like even like in specifically the Fox verse, of course, obviously Marvel Studios didn't make Deadpool 2.
Right.
I guess it's on par with the first Deadpool, but I guess I didn't think it like felt unique in terms of like, oh, David Leitch definitely directed this, But what did you think of the overall the overall vibe that Reynolds brought this time around? It seemed like he was like extra motivated to break the fourth wall more, hit harder with his references and his meta conversations. Like, how'd you feel about Reynolds this time around?
Reynolds, I thought, like I said, I think he's great as Deadpool. He brings a really great vibe to it. It's so interesting to think about like Ryan Reynolds now, as like they touch on it in the end credit scene. I don't really want to jump to that quite yet because I think there's other stuff to kind of dig into, but he touches on a lot of his and mistakes in the past. I still think like he can hit like another level. He
it
get to, but I think like you're in a way.
Yeah, it almost seems like this is easy for him. Like this is him having fun.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's easy for him being Deadpool, and it's almost like not ambitious for him. But like he also is such a steward of his character now.
Right.
Yeah, I mean overall, I think it's a worthy sequel. It's more Deadpool, and for most people, I think that'll be enough.
I mean, Fandango and Regal both announced that it was the highest R-rated movies, so it's gonna do pretty well at the box office this weekend. I think it will catch Deadpool 1.
I think it'll get really close. The first Deadpool 1 opened Valentine's Day weekend. It was the original record holder in February before Black Panther blew it out of the water. But I mean, Deadpool 1 is still the highest grossing R-rated debut ever. It was 132 million over 3 days. And it's tracking to go between 130 and 150 this weekend domestically. So yeah, good odds. I mean, and tracking with Avengers and Black Panther was way under. So odds are it'll be the new highest grossing weekend for an R-rated film, which is great. I think the Fox verse with Logan, the two Deadpools, is a slightly different lane that Marvel and DC have intentionally not gone down. So it's good to see them continue to succeed in the R-rated space. And let's hope if Marvel Studios does, the acquisition of Fox goes through, that they don't immediately throw away the work they've done in the R-rated space and continue to let the people at Fox, make these movies. I mean, we know we have New Mutants coming out next year. That's I don't think that's actually rated R, but that's gonna be horror-esque. Definitely like an avant-garde superhero film. So, Fox has gotten a lot of shit over the years, and they made a few really bad X-Men movies, one of which is referenced in the end credits. But I think overall, I think they have great momentum.
Yeah, and I mean, Reynolds seems to really enjoy this role. Like you said, it's easy for him, and I think he pretty much just gets to play a lot of himself and what his own actual humor is and sensibilities in a way. I don't think he's like obviously as out there as Deadpool the character is, but he just likes to kind of slip into this kind of character. Do you think there will be a Deadpool 3?
The rumors are that they would do an X-Force movie first. I don't that none of that's in production right now, and I don't think we'll hear anything about it until that Fox deal goes through or doesn't, get struck down one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
There was that rumor probably 5-6 months ago that they were going to make a Kitty Pryde movie. That's who Ellen Page plays in X-Men, and I was like, that ain't happening. Like they're not going to greenlight any more X-Men films until this deal is done. And we got Dark Phoenix and New Mutants coming out next year. They pushed Dark Phoenix out of this at the end of this year. So I think X-Force sounds cool. They did kill Terry Crews, but now he's probably alive. Mm-hmm. So I think expanding it in that R-rated space is cool, but I think there's also a lot of push them to reset X-Men and because the continuity is so fucked that maybe they'd want to maybe keep the X-Men for like X-Men proper, I could see either way to it. But yeah, if a Deadpool 3 is to happen, it's probably going to be under Disney's watch or Comcast watch, or if Fox holds out, under them.
I know. I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, what's going to be more confusing, the timelines going on in the X-Men movies or the timelines going on in the fourth Avengers movie? After that it's all said and done. Definitely going to be interesting. I think that they'll probably make a Deadpool 3 eventually, because like we said, like Reynolds can do this at any time, especially if he has the creative power he did this time. He'll be down for it. Plus
the box office growth,
Exactly. Yeah, it's a cash cow basically. Any other thoughts around this movie?
I'm very curious to see how the reception goes. The reviews are actually stronger than I thought. It's as of right now, it's at 84% on Rotten Tomatoes, but that's 154 positive reviews to only 29 negative. So most critics have a lot of time for this film, and you would think critics would be the people that would get sick of the, diminishing returns with the humor first. So I'm interested to see how the fans react. I assume they'll be just as positive. So that's not quite what I expected.
Yeah. I'm just looking up here quick what the original one is at on Rotten Tomatoes. I'd probably imagine somewhere around similar to that. Let me just pull it up here. 83%. Yeah. So it's right around where the first was at. The reception, because our initial reaction is that I'm a bit tired. Other people will probably have it, but who knows?
Yep. That's for sure.
So I think that's going to wrap it up for this week. We touched on a lot in this pod. Obviously, we're recording the other stuff, but we're going to be talking about a lot of different movies next week. So we're going to be talking about movies that a lot of people Quidditch, Borg versus McEnroe. And so definitely check out our pod next week to get caught up on some little movies that you probably haven't heard of or checked out this year, or if you have checked out, we on Twitter, soundcloud.com/Nowstalgia pod page somewhere, and us people Dave.
Peace.